Case here, and today I am showing you guys some of the belt kit that I use. This is my primary form of kit, though I also have other gear that I use that you've also been seeing reviews pop up on the channel. Now with that said, let's begin with a couple of disclaimers. First, D13 Airsoft is primarily a Airsoft channel. Though I hope you can get something out of this even if you are using this for more serious uses, do understand that if you are getting your tactical advice from an Airsoft channel, and only an Airsoft channel, you should probably reevaluate your life choices. We are not experts on anything you see on the channel, nor do we pretend to be so. What you will also find is this video is part of our annual video series. So for the gear side of the house, we have this thing called the Gear Talk series, where you see the gradual changes me and other members of the team make in terms of our gear throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we will have a full breakdown, taking apart all the items and our gear to show you what our loadouts are. This is the final capstone of that for 2024. Yes, I am filming this very late. I'm going to label it for 2024. And at the end of 2025, you're going to see another video similar to this. If you recall, if you go all the way back to our channel, there was a 2023 version of this. That was the first in that series. This is now the second one, and then you'll see a third one hopefully later this year in 2025. And due to that, for this video, you will see me comparing a lot from that video to this one to show some of the larger changes that have occurred since then. Okay, with the disclaimers out of the way, I want to start first with a general philosophy of use. Now, for me personally, I use this stuff for Airsoft just as much as I do with actual firearms. And from a civilian philosophy of use, this is supposed to be a jack of all trades and many uses. From many Airsoft uses to days at the range, shooting competitions, training, to a concerned citizen. There are a lot of different philosophies I use this for. I can use this with a rucksack, which is very unique with belt kit in comparison to, say, certain types of plate carrier loadouts or tactical vest loadouts. It's able to take a lot of capacity, both in terms of offensive capabilities like magazines, ammunition, but also sustainment items such as water and food, away from your rucksack, which is something that's unique to the belt kit system. That's very convenient, with a lot of that weight, though being very heavy, very good to be distributed on your hips. Ultimately, for a lot of civilians, especially on the offensive side, ammunition, pyrotechnics, etc., it's largely unlikely a civilian like me would ever actually need to use those, but in terms of philosophy of use, it is the intended purpose. And this was more refined when I first started to build this loadout up in Alaska, where it was very difficult to get resupplied, and the elements were just as deadly as any return fire. In many cases, I developed this loadout to take a lot of sustainable items away from the rucksack, because without the proper items, I could freeze to death within an hour of being away from that rucksack or some sort of warm shelter. So I was carrying a lot of different stuff. Now, when I moved out of Alaska, back to North Carolina, I don't have to worry about the cold as much, but I still have to deal with extreme heat, swamps, bugs, and need for more hydration or water. So ultimately, the sustainment side of the belt kit still retains, just in a different way. And thus, I have still maintained and used this kit as a interesting, I guess, experiment into that philosophy of use. Again, even if statistically it may not be that likely I would need it. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the things that aren't on the belt kit. Because as we go through this, you may wonder, hey, Case, why aren't you using certain items or carrying certain things? Or if you thought about this, in reality, I might actually have those items, just not on the belt kit. So let's start with the uniform. Right now I'm wearing some multicam. First off, this is the uniform. I am 100% unashamed multicam bro. I know some people find that gross, but hey, multi-bros stay winning. Eat it. Now what you will notice is the blouse is different from the 2023 belt kit video. Now in that one, I was using a German design blouse. It was kind of interesting, kind of funky. It was sort of an in-between between a conventional military blouse and a smock. Up in Alaska, that made more sense. It was great for the summer mosquitoes, while still having some mild summers up there. So the uniform is a little thicker. Pouches are very baggy up front. So if I were no body armor or wore the body armor underneath it, then I could still get access to those pockets. Now, as you see, I moved away from that to a more conventional U.S. surplus blouse. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One was because that German blouse had buttons on the sides up here, which is a little less fast to get to certain items. I prefer Velcro or a zipper. In addition, the blouse, I wore it in the intent of having body armor underneath it so that when I'm wearing body armor, I can still get access to the large pockets on the breast. Now, I have moved away from that because down here in the South, if you put your body armor underneath your blouse, it is doable many times of the year, but in the heat of summer, you're going to have that heat trapped underneath you and you're going to quickly become a heat casualty. So I've moved away from that, sacrificed the use of the pockets up front when I'm wearing body armor, and heavily focusing on the pockets on the shoulder or pockets somewhere else like on my cargo pants. As for what I'm wearing on the uniform, in my pants on the left calf side I'll have a red lens headlamp. Left cargo pocket I will have a spare tourniquet. Left pocket I will have another tourniquet. On my right I will have a compass and a small multi-tool. And in my right cargo pocket I have a admin notebook for some paper and admin products. As for headgear, I am still using the Protection Group Denmark helmet. This is one of the first videos I ever contributed to the D13 channel. Still going good for my purposes, and I still like it. For body armor, this is a Bees Combat System. I think they call it the Covert Plate Carrier or something like that. I did an initial review on this early on the channel as well, and I have further cumberized it now to where I have stripped most of the Velcro and webbing off of it and replaced the cummerbunds with Crye-ABS skeletal cummerbunds with a side armor plate for the Crye LVS soft armor I have in the sides. To get this plate carrier how I want it was a very roundabout and expensive way. For those watching, I would not recommend following that path. There are a lot of plate carriers that are good enough and similar in terms of how compact this is. As for why I wanted the body armor carrier like this, I wanted to be slimlined enough to where it could be pretty seamless with my belt kit. Also with other kit like my chest rig, my taps rig, which you also see a video on I talk about. As for the belt kit itself, something else I want to talk about are some of the big changes you're seeing from the 2023 video until now. Now if you want to see some of the more minute changes, go watch the Gear Talk series I made throughout the year or so. However, for this, some of the bigger changes is first the belt. Originally I started with a British Surplus belt kit belt. It worked quite well, its accompanying harness. Then I moved to a JJ's yoke, which is a little more minimalistic. Then I moved the belt to a U.S. Army Surplus Flick belt because it was a little more compact, and I did like that. However, it was never designed to be used as a dedicated belt kit to carry this much weight. So eventually I looked around, of course my obsession multicam. I wanted to see what was out there because I was originally using a ACU belt kit that I had, flick belt that I had rattle canned, and I eventually found British Tactical. Now British Tactical has a belt here. This was the original one I purchased, and it's the exact same one as the one I'm using now, except when I got it I noticed that the harness points here were unevenly installed. One of the sides was one whole PALS webbing cell too far to one side, making it uneven. My OCD got the best of me. I called up the customer support and they sent me another one for free. So great customer support on their part. Kind of a freak thing that happens, but I can see how that could have happened. As for the belt itself, you were looking at 22 PALS webbing cells long by 2 cells tall. Now that's great to me because the original British Surplus belt I was using at certain points had only 2 cells, but it had this like third cushion gap for your thighs. I didn't really like it. I preferred a belt a little more compact, and this fits that bill while still providing a good amount of comfort and padding inside. So overall, pretty comfortable for the weight you are carrying. In addition, those 22 cells, a little more. I think the flick belt I was using had like 21 or 20. It's an even number. You can make things symmetrical. It's also pretty high capacity. A lot of belts are between 18 to 20. And just those extra little cells to attach 1 or 2 more pouches on here really helps a lot. At least to me. Another change you see is when I'm using this in the cold. Though fairly rare when I do, I am putting this over my belt kit right around my stomach and where I can stick my hands. This is a Eagle Industries glove warmer, I think that's what it's called. And just very simple, has a nice zipper right here to put some items, and does a very good job of keeping your hands warm, even with gloves on. So I do recommend that for the few times I am dealing with colder temperatures. Okay, next change is, here is a Condor Chinese-made handgun magazine pouch. One of the few products from Condor I actually like. I got a soft spot for the simplicity of this design, and I kept a couple over the years. Back in 2023, I was putting a handgun on this. It was also a SIG 320, which right now is probably not the best handgun to be using as evidence through various examples online right now. With that said, philosophy-wise, I've moved away from having a handgun on here. One, it takes up a lot of space that I could be using for something else. For example, the space where I used to carry that handgun and these spare magazine pouches, I have replaced with a smoke grenade pouch and a pouch dedicated to miscellaneous items, including carrying night vision, a lot of the filming equipment I need to produce content on the channel, and some spare batteries and whatnot, which is way more useful to me, both on the real still and airsoft side. Outside of a shooting competition where they mandate a handgun, I really just don't have a use for a handgun on this. For the airsoft side, I think maybe in 2021 up in Alaska, I was at a game where I used a handgun, and even then I didn't really need to use it. Another Condor Chinese product that I've moved away from, though I have a lot of respect for, is the Condor dump pouch. This one in particular has been through a lot. Only really in the past 8 months or so have I finally moved away from it. And part of that was because I just really liked how big it was. I cut the elastic cord inside as I did not need it, but the mouth on it is very stiff and it keeps it open. It can carry a lot in terms of capacity, and it was very easy to install on the belt kit with these wide loops on the top. I was able to hang it down from the loops by a couple inches and have the mouth open, while some dump pouch designs have the webbing right there on the edges where you need to attach it straight to the webbing. That is really important to me, especially a belt kit, because it's actually easier said than done to attach a dump pouch to belt kit or LBE kit, because that takes up a lot of space, and you want to use that space for something else. So having a dump pouch that you can actually integrate and hide and attach underneath other pouches and more seamlessly integrate with it means a lot to me. You'll see what I've replaced it with, but that was something I used for quite a while before moving to something not made by slave labor. Another change is, this is the old Eagle Industries padded radio pouch. Still a very venerated pouch. I liked it. However, even with this one, occasionally I would run into situations where the cheap Barofang radio I had, even with the keys locked, would sometimes start making some noise or an accidental button press, because this is a soft pouch. And if I rubbed it against something or went prone or went to my side, I could potentially hit a button on it. In addition, this is a pretty large pouch for something as simple as a Baofeng, including with the extended battery. We'll see what I replaced it with in a moment. However, the solution is a much more compact one. Another thing I moved away from was on the front of these JJ Mag pouches. I used to have these giant rifle magazine pouches. I think these are made by Rothko or True Spec, but they're made in Korea. They are a rare example of the old M81 issued magazine pouches, Damali magazine pouches, except this is actually a multicam. I really liked them. They're super hard to find, so I still keep them for nostalgia's sake. But I would keep them up here, and that was so that I could have a little more capacity. These would serve as a universal pyro pouch. I could stick a couple different grenades in it, a couple of smoke grenades, even more rifle magazines if I needed to. The reason I went away from them is because they are very bulky on the front. Up here, having a full-size magazine pouch attached to another magazine pouch. So I have moved away to smaller dedicated pyro pouches for the grenades, which we'll get a close-up of later. This is a US surplus grenade pouch. Something you will see with the British grenade pouches that I have replaced it with is these aren't that great. They're very simple, and there's a charm to that. But with grenades, I do want an extra layer of tension than just this basic snap, as after a certain pressure point, the snap will come undone, and now the grenade is free to come out. Obviously, there's a danger with that if you're using an actual grenade. For me, 99% of my pyro is just civilian stuff for airsoft, And those are things I buy with my own money, and I don't want them to disappear on me or get crushed in a way that I cannot protect them. So I moved away from those to something that has more, in this case, double retention, both Velcro and a plastic buckle. Another thing is this is the Warrior Assault System Medium Ripaway IFAK. This is an awesome IFAK. I have been using it for years. I've recently moved away from it though. And the reason is if you look at this, it is held together via two panels. You have a panel that with MOLLE webbing that you weave into the PALS webbing on the belt. And then there's a Velcro backing that you attach the Velcro backing of this pouch and attach that way. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to get to IFAK fast and you may not even have both hands available, i.e. you being injured, you can get to it very quickly, rip it off. If you need to toss it back on quickly, the Velcro gives you a chance to retain it, or you can just shove it in a dump pouch and move. In addition, having it on a belt kit is fantastic because a lot of times the belt kit can carry a lot, but it's not always convenient because it's going to be directly behind you on your lower back, which is where I keep my IFAK. So it really did mean a lot to have something like that. Now the reason I moved away from it is if you notice this panel, if you have this against the webbing, this is actually supposed to fit on 3 cells of PALS webbing. And I only had 2 cells of webbing available on the real estate on this belt. And for a while I just crammed it onto the 2 and made it work. However, it did make it just a little bulky back here, an already very bulky belt kit. So I moved away from it to the twin needle IFAK, which I have on it now. The twin needle is slightly less in capacity, but I can still fit everything into it. Still a rip-away design, but the basic panel is 2 webbing cells, as we get a close-up later. So I moved away from this fantastic pouch to that instead, which is still a good quality IFAK. The last big change I want to talk about from that 2023 video is my canteen pouches. So I still have one of these British Tactical lidded utility pouches, I think is the full title of them, made by British Tactical, just like the belt. I have one right here. However, I used to have 2 more right here for the 2 canteen pouches, some other items. For the longest time, I used the British Surplus MTP canteen pouches, and I have recently put them back on after a decent hiatus of using this. Now, these pouches are fantastic. I talked about them, I think in the last gear talk, and how much I like them in terms of their capacity. With that said, I have since then scaled back some of the items I have on this belt kit. And what's unique about this is when you have this filled out, it is a thick boy. And even though all of this stuff's pretty thick, it was thick enough to where when I was wearing the kit and running around, I could kind of feel it jiggling in the back. I would tie down certain points of paracord to the other pouches. I started using a elastic band on my belt kit in the back again to kind of retain stuff, and it was still just kind of moving around in a way I didn't like. It wasn't the end of the world, but it just kind of bugged me. So I've kind of scaled that back and gone back to the British Surplus MTP pouches. In my case, I think these 2 are actually labeled as 100-round saw pouches, but they're really supposed to be canteen/utility pouches as well. And they're a little bit skinnier, a little flatter, and it kind of reduces some of the bulk up front. And we're really only talking about like ½ an inch difference. But in terms of gear, that means a lot. It really does. And it really keeps things from jiggling around as much. So with the weight that I have on this, I really do appreciate that. So as much as I really like these pouches, I don't really have a need for them, at least as for my 2 canteen pouches, and I moved away from them. All right, finally, get to the actual kit itself. So let's start with the harness system. So what I have here is a Mayflower Jungle Rig H harness. So it has technically 6 attachment points. So if you go to the front here, you will see it has 2 attachment points up front that combine pretty shortly up here. Same thing on the other side. In the back, you just have 2 attachment points. Now, on this belt kit, there were only 4 harness attachment points, so I kind of had to make one through the webbing on each side right here for these points, but it works out fine. Now, the reason I like this is due to its simplicity. Part of me would kind of like an 8-point harness system, particularly on the back here, to distribute that weight more. But right now, it's still very satisfactory. And the H shape is fantastic for integrating with slimline body armor, like the body armor carrier I showed you earlier. This There's also space for a name tape on the back with some Velcro. Up front, you will see there is a chest buckle to attach up front. That's great, kind of cinching things down, especially with the weight you have, in particular body armor. On the side here, I have a Baofeng to NATO cable push to talk that I have weaved through the webbing behind some of the pouches to get to the radio and attach it up here. Then I threw some camo tape to help break apart the black duct tape. Right here is some pace speeds for land navigation. Quite frankly, as a civilian, I don't use it that often, but I got it. Right here is a medium-sized K-bar knife. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's medium-sized, not the micro. I originally had a leather holster for it, or leather sheath, and that started to get worn down, so I've replaced it with this plastic one. As you see here, there are two different buckles here. When I'm not using it, I keep them with both snapped in a safe condition. If I absolutely needed to use so, and I think I would remove this snap and hide it behind there so that if I needed to, and actually, I notice it's wrong. So if you've noticed here, this can actually rotate. I prefer it rotated this way so that I can grab my left hand, and as I'm coming up, I can open that snap and pull the knife out into an ice pick grip. The reason I have this knife is because, one, I have it. I am not much of a knife guy, so I don't carry a bunch of different knives. It just works good enough for me. In addition, my rifle cannot take a bayonet, does not have a bayonet lug, so I do not need a bayonet. So a small utility knife or small fighting knife, what do you want to call it, is really all I need. Now moving to the front, again, this is a British tactical belt and multicam. So far, doing pretty good. What you have up here is a full, I think that's a 2-inch buckle. Some of the other buckles I used on belts in the past would either be 1.5 or 1 inch. I also had some that was a 1 2/5 Cobra buckle, I think. Actually, no, I think it was 1.5 Cobra buckle. All those buckles are fine. I actually prefer a smaller buckle because, unique to the world of Airsoft, if you get shot, you can actually recover. And in the world of Airsoft, BBs do a lot of damage to plastic hardware on tactical gear. This stuff's pretty good quality, but BBs can bring a high amount of force and trauma upon this plastic and shatter them. They do it all the time. Not on this buckle yet, thankfully, but I've seen it before on other buckles and gear I had. And then I've adjusted it enough so that the excess I did not cut. Instead, I just taped, because you never know. Okay, so let's start on my left. So what I have here are two British NTP surplus grenade pouches. Now, as I mentioned before, in comparison to the US Army grenade pouches, they are great because they have double retention, which, unlike other equipment pouches, that means a lot with grenades. If you have to deal with a real one, you don't want to have one of those go missing, or heaven forbid, the pin and spoon to become undone, because you don't get a second chance. In addition, what is great here is you have the plastic buckle, the unbuckle, and then the Velcro. So you got the double retention there. Now, I will say, as I've used these more, this plastic buckle is a little annoying because this is only a 1/2 inch buckle. When you have your gloves and you're trying to grab it and pinch it, it's a little hard to get to. And then once you do unsnap it, you notice how it doesn't just automatically fall out. You still have to pull it out and then get to it. I would prefer something a little bit bigger and something a little further back, so if I snapped it, it would just completely come undone in a single motion. But, you know, that's a small refinement, but overall it's a decent pouch, very good quality in terms of the fabric. What I will also say, is notice that I have 4 of these pouches up front. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This one we'll talk about what's in it in a moment, but these 3 do have grenades in them. Now, the most common airsoft grenade you will find is a EG67, and I have an example here in a Ziploc bag to partially waterproof it, because one of the flaws of these is that they are terrible against water. It's essentially a firecracker with a pin with some BBs inside a cardboard, 2 cardboard halves glued together. So water will destroy these. In addition, pressure will destroy these. So I could probably crush this in my hand if I really wanted to, and there goes 10 to 15 bucks, depending how much these cost. This grenade right here because of how I wear the belt, is going to be right there at my groin up front. So when I go prone, this type of grenade and this pouch placement is at the mercy of how much weight I put upon it. Other grenade models in the world of airsoft don't have to deal with this problem, but the EG67s do. I do not fear that they're going to go off under that pressure, but they can be crushed, and that can make them unusable. I mentioned that in my TAPS Chester review. The placement of that grenade pouch with the EG67 also has that issue. Now, I will say though, is on these two sides, it's not as much of an issue because these are weaved on the sides of the magazine pouches, which I'll explain in a moment. So when I am going prone, these aren't being crushed underneath my stomach or my groin, but instead are being distributed on my sides, and when they hit the ground, they are moving forward into the air in line with the belt buckle, if that makes sense. So that is a slight, it is a small but important difference in the niche use of the EG67s and placement of your grenade pouches on here. Now going back to this guy, so this one inside is a, who makes this again? I think it is a no, it is Indob USA makes the webbing strap, and then I just got a climbing carabiner attached to it with a second one weaved through the webbing so it retains it. This is meant as a medical dragster. So this originally came in its own pouch. Instead, I replaced it with a standard grenade pouch because one, if I want to remove this, I now have a fourth grenade pouch. The idea behind this is I unravel it, and we'll hook this carabiner to someone who is in a medical emergency and needs to be dragged, and I no longer have to use one or both of my hands. I have them freely do other things, and I can continue to drag them. I will say it is very cumbersome and a lot of weight on the POWS webbing to carry a full-blown, say 180, 200-pound human being alongside all their gear. But it is an option that is better than nothing than just grabbing them and dragging them, if you're in a situation where you have to do that alone. For the airsoft side, that largely doesn't matter. I think American Milsim allows you to drag players who are hit, but outside of that, that's more of a real-world scenario that thankfully I have not had to deal with yet. But that once I start practicing with this a little more, you might be seeing this placement a little different, in particular depending on that weight distribution. There was a time when I had it on this side, and what I found as a right-handed shooter, when I was dragging the person, it would cause me to want to lean that way, causing me to, when I carried the rifle, kind of, it didn't make it easy for me to keep online with the target. So I switched it to this side to kind of counteract that, and it helps a lot more. Kind of hard to explain, but I think I did a training video where I discussed it. Okay, moving to this side, this is the JJ's Molly Double Magazine Pouch. I did a full review just on this magazine pouch because I'm such a big fan of it. This one right here is a newer one that I replaced the one I used for, I forgot how long I said. It might be getting close to 2.5 years of use. It started to get torn in certain parts, so I replaced it. The other one on the other side that we will get to is still being used. It's getting close to 3 years of use. Still very durable, and it has been through a lot. I can tell you that for free. Now, what you'll notice is on the bottom here, I have 2 pull tabs that I have attached paracord to. The first one has 1 knot, the second one has 2 knots. This made a lot more sense when I was up in Alaska, where I had to wear very thick gloves in the wintertime. And what that did is it gave me 2 things. 1, a lot more space to grab the pull tab with those thick gloves. And 2, just based on feel, I could identify which pouch I was grabbing if I had different equipment in it. So that helped out a lot. What you also notice on the sides have MOLLE webbing, which is how I'm able to attach pouches to this and add a layering system to the type of gear I have without taking up real estate on the belt, which helps a lot in providing extra real estate on here. You open this up, you'll notice I have 3 mags in each one, 6 mags total. That's incredibly good capacity. In the larger full review of these pouches, I'll talk about some of the other stuff you can put in here. But for me, it's mainly 5.56 magazines. What you also notice is in the middle here is a pull tab that you could attach elastic to, and I have added elastic to further retain these magazines. Now I'm going to be having the cover over them most of the time. However, having the elastic there would help dampen down some of the noise and jiggling you would have, because again, a lot of this kit is very wide, and having something like that does help retain that. Okay, next up is a British MTP surplus smoke grenade pouch. So what's great about this is it's smaller than those rifle magazine pouches I mentioned earlier, while still big enough to carry a full-sized EG-67, Enola Gay large smoke grenade. In addition, some of the military-sized smoke grenades as well can fit in there, or 2 medium Enola Gay smoke grenades, which is what I normally do. What I have here is Border Town's Kydex holster for the Baofeng. This can take a couple of different Baofeng models. This one is the UV5R. This can take it with the extended battery or the normal battery size. It will fit both, but you do need to remove the quick attach clip on the back. What I have done with the push-to-talk is I weave it through the magazine pouches so it just stays here and help with cable management. I can fit this in and out. Now, unique to the UV5Rs is this turn volume on it, on and off, and then volume increase. Even when nothing's touching it, I somehow rattle it running around to impact the volume. So I usually duct tape that to where I want. That's why you see that duct tape there. And overall, yeah, it's pretty easy to stick in and easily come in and out, especially in Airsoft games. You're flopping between frequencies sometimes, so it helps kind of get to it, easy access. Very flat pouch. Again, unlike the Eagle Industry Radio pouch, it is a hard shell, not soft shell, so accidentally hitting buttons has dramatically decreased. In dealing with rain, unfortunately, it is open top, so do be careful with that. I'm trying to keep this out of the rain and water. As for antennas, this is the newer standard UV5R medium-sized antenna. I still have some of the old ones. I will also use the Shorty, which is like a 1-inch stub. I also have a couple other different antennas, though I will say, unfortunately, the longer ones are very fragile, so I've been moving away from those and just sticking to this or the Shorty. Now, as I open this out, this is a Warrior Assault System dump pouch. This competes with the Condor dump pouch very well in providing a lot of capacity, still being multicam, not used with Chinese slave labor, and having a very open mouth to put a lot of stuff into. There's also webbing on the side if you really wanted to go crazy. Part of me wondered if I could put some grenade pouches there. I probably could, but I don't really need it right now. I will say it is a little weird adjusting this, but once I do, it does give me a space to have this. And having the radio pouch right here, unlike other pouches, it's a flatter pouch, so I still have a lot of space here to put my hand in and put in, say, a magazine or something. What you notice here is elastic cord with some hooks I have attached to these 4 pouches on the side here. So these 4 pouches carry a lot of weight in the back and can be quite bulky, and this is one of the ways I try to better retain them without them flopping around. It's just a simple, I think it's, I forgot, 0.7 or 1 millimeter, something like that, thickness elastic. And it's just enough to help. Nothing, it's not, clinched all the way down, just a little bit to help keep things in place. Now here's one of the original MTP canteen pouches I talked about. Actually, again, it is technically labeled the nomenclature as a 100-round saw pouch, but again, it's utility canteen. But these two have both been with me probably since mid to late 2021. One of them, off camera, I think had a buckle shatter from a BB or from just pressure of sitting down on it. But these guys have been around for a hot minute and still going strong. Something that's super unique about these British surplus is different from US surplus is not just you have a modern camo on the outside, but the inside material is an extra layer of like this very rubbery waterproof material, which, I mean, it really adds to a lot of quality to these pouches that you don't see with a lot of US surplus, which I found interesting. Now inside here, I have one of my 1 liter canteen pouches. Both of these I don't think have a CBurn cap. As a civilian, I don't really care about the CBurn caps. In addition, the CBurn caps add a little extra height to these pouches. So having this without the CBurn cap helps further close these. At the bottom, I have a mosquito net for the head. This is great in very buggy seasons in the summertime. I can throw it over even my helmet or put it over me and then put the helmet on. Also when I am sleeping at night. So even when I'm away from the rucksack, I have one of these on me. Now going here, this is the twin needle IFAK I was talking about. Already has the black medical cross on there. Hit the buckle, opens it up. You will have the rip away handle here. There's also rip away handle at the other side, and you can rip it out. So this is pretty nifty. And again, this is 2 panels instead of 3. So it's a little more compact in a very cramped space, as you can see here. Now inside the IFAK, opening it up, showing a couple of items I got. I have a chem light with some paracord attached, so if I absolutely have to, as an emergency signal, I can helicopter it. Decompression needle, Sharpie. Inside, I have some chest seals. I actually have 3 right now. When I was going through my TAPS chest rig, I noticed as well it was 3. I used to have 4, then I moved to 3. Now I'm kind of going back to 4. But 3, 4, the idea is just to have a contingency in case the first 2 go out. And why you want 2 for chest seals? Because if you have an entry wound, you will probably have a exit wound. So that's why. Let's see, this is my boo-boo kit. So inside, I'm not going to show this other side, is a laminated card with my medical information, including a lot of information a lot of Airsoft events mandate. So if I go to American Milsim or Third Coast or Milsim West, they mandate this medical card be with you with certain information, and it's good to have this already pre-written, saves you some time. Sometimes they want it out of the IFAK in like one of your shoulder pockets, which is fine, but I have it. Now the rest of this are various sized Band-Aids and some small gauze pads. And then on this, lastly on this other half of the IFAK is a laminated sheet of paper inside. It has a cheat sheet for handling trauma care following the MARCH process, or the MARCH acronym for those who know. Obviously you want to study and memorize this well beforehand, but if you ever panic or you're confused, it's good to have that cheat sheet with you, and that's why I have it, just in case. Right here is some medical tape. I've already started the pull tab and folded over on it, so it's easy to grab to that pull tab first thing. I have medical shears, tourniquet, combat gauze, Israeli bandage, and a large gauze roll. So if you notice between my TAPS chest rig and my everyday carry, those 2 systems I also have some sort of IFAK in as well. IFAK individual first aid kit to handle trauma such as bullet wounds. This is probably the largest capacity, and even with this being slightly smaller than the Warrior Assault System IFAK, as you just saw, it can carry a really great amount, at least for an individual's IFAK. So really happy with that. Okay, moving next is the next British MTP 100 round saw pouch. Inside is my second 1 liter canteen. So I'm walking around with 2 liters of water, which is fantastic in terms of capability. What you will notice inside is I do have about 20 or so water purification tablets. So if I absolutely have to, I do have a way to still drink some sort of water if I were to run out of those 2 liters. Inside as well, it's a little bit of a pain to pull out, is a U.S. Army surplus canteen cup. Now the canteen cup, in terms of field crafting, cooking, yeah, there's a use for it. All my other water sources are plastic, so if I do have to boil something, it is nice to have something that can be boiled in. However, my primary purpose of having it in here is the ease of pulling the canteen in and out of the pouch. If I put this in here by itself, it's actually quite hard to put back in when it's on your back when you're wearing the gear. The other one I didn't put it in because that's my secondary canteen. This is the primary canteen I get out. If I absolutely need to swap canteens, it's usually in some downtime where I actually take the belt kit off, swap the canteens into pouches, and then keep going back to this one in this pouch. And that's why I have that canteen cup in there. And having that canteen cup conformed in there with this cramped space keeps it stiff and open, so that even with the lids off, I can open it in and out and then put it back in, no problem. Moving on to here. So this was the third British Tactical lidded utility pouch that actually I decided to keep on here, so now it's the only one. You do have webbing on top if you need a retaining point for something, say some wet weather gear. I'm going to attach it to my back harness. Sometimes I do that instead of shoving it in the cargo pocket if I'm away from the rucksack, but overall that's not why I use it. And the back here, it actually has a hidden compartment. It's big, it's like 8 inches deep, so it's big enough to hold a spare magazine if you want. For me, I have 4 of these meat sticks. It's just some food to have on me away from the rucksack. As for when you open it, you have double retention if you want, or you can cover up the Velcro tab here to make it single retention with the belt buckle. Inside there is a hidden admin sleeve where I have a couple of batteries. I used to carry a lot more batteries. I have put most of that into the rucksack now. But I still have around 6 or so AAAs, 1 AA, 1 CR123. Just a contingency plan to help me out until I can get back to the rucksack. In addition, the main compartment is empty right now. That is Mission Pacific, or for night vision, or for certain like GoPro batteries, some other batteries and stuff I need for the content creation side. This is really meant for the night vision pouch, though when I do, preferably you want some sort of padded insert, as by itself it's not that protective, but it's big enough to fit it in there, so that's nice. Going on to here, as you can see, there is space on the the PALS webbing on the side of the pouch. However, with how tight it is here, I don't put anything there. And then if you open this up, same thing again. You have the pull tabs right here. You got 1 knot and 2 knots. 6 more mags, giving you a total of 12 plus 1, 6 mags. For Airsoft, sometimes I'll swap this out with a speed loader, cell phone, sometimes some extra pyro, because I don't normally need, 12 Airsoft mid-caps. But for real still, if you want the capacity, this Loadout gives you that capability to do so. And again, with the elastic straps or elastic cord to further retain them, keep them from wobbling around inside, making noise. And then we are back to the front where I've already discussed these grenade pouches. Okay, so that's that. With that said, this is a pretty heavy loadout, but the trade-off is a lot of capabilities, both in terms of offensive capabilities, both in terms of sustainment. You can still use it with a rucksack if you can carry the weight, as having something like, say, an Alice rucksack, which I am also going to be doing a video on. It's very easy to stack this on top of your back, with this being on your lower back and butt and your waist. Having this on your waist, as belt kit traditionally is, over, say, a plate carrier or a chest rig, is really good at distributing the weight. Is it as good in mechanized operations or just being in a vehicle? No. Can low brush get caught on it more than, say, something higher up on your torso? Yes. There's a trade-off to everything. Would a civilian even need something of this capacity? That's where you decide. Either way, statistically, it's going to be very low. But as a experiment to test with this gear, I have a lot of appreciation for it. It's not as popular as other types of gear, plate carrier, chest rigs, range belts, pistol belts, but it is slowly making a comeback in niche uses, both on the civilian side and even some military side. And it's really neat to see when these are useful. So with that said, tell me if you guys found anything here useful, found it interesting. If you disagree or you think you have some different ideas on it, leave in a comment. Let's have a discussion. But with that said, thank you guys for watching. See you around next time. Bye.